Dangar Island sits quietly in the Hawkesbury River, just north of Sydney. Today it's a peaceful, forested community of only a few hundred residents, but this small island holds thousands of years of history and more than a few remarkable stories. For countless years the island was known to the Guringai people. It formed part of their broader cultural landscape along the lower Hawkesbury. When the first fleet arrived in 1788, Governor Arthur Phillip explored this river by small boat and visited the island, naming it Mullet Island for the abundance of fish in the surrounding waters. But within just 2 years everything changed. By 1790, more than half of the Guringai people had died from smallpox, brought by the British, a devastating loss that reshaped the region forever. In 1864, the island was purchased by Henry Carey Dangar, son of surveyor and politician Henry Dangar. He built a home here, and the island eventually took his family name. Although the name Dangar Island appeared on maps as early as 1872, it wasn't officially adopted until 1922. One of the most extraordinary chapters in the island's history began in the late 1880s. The Union Bridge Company of Chicago leased the island as the construction base for the original Hawkesbury River Rail Bridge. Between 1886 and 1889, around 300 workers and their families lived here, transforming the island into a bustling temporary township. It had everything: a large social hall, a school, a library, and even its own newspaper. A grand building known as the Marine Hotel opened in 1890, offering first-class refreshments at Sydney prices, along with bathing, fishing, oystering, tennis courts, and even a skittle alley. Visitors arrived by train and ferry to enjoy the island's attractions. Most of the Marine Hotel was destroyed by a fire in 1939, but a surviving section, known as the Pavilion, still stands today as a private residence. In the 1920s, the island was subdivided into residential plots, with areas deliberately reserved for public recreation. The post office opened in 1951 and served the community until 1986. Over time, Dangar Island developed a reputation as a close-knit, creative and environmentally conscious community. The Dangar Island Historical Society, founded in 1980, continues to preserve stories, photographs and oral histories that capture the island's unique character. One of the first recorded people born on the island was James Big Jim Stanbury in 1868. He would go on to become a 4-time world champion in single sculls rowing, a remarkable legacy for someone born on what was then still called Mullet Island. And local lore includes colourful tales from the bridge-building era, stories of auctions, engineering feats, and even rumours that one of the bridge construction leaders met a tragic end involving sharks. The Historical Society Guide explores these stories in detail. Today, Dangar Island remains one of the Hawkesbury's most distinctive communities, accessible only by ferry or private boat, rich in history, and surrounded by the natural beauty that has drawn people here for thousands of years. As you look across the island now, it's easy to imagine the many lives, cultures, and stories that have shaped this small but extraordinary place. If you take the ferry from Brooklyn to Dangar on a school day before about 9 a.m. or after 3 p.m., you'll see lots of kids in school uniforms, reflecting the changing island demographics. Even so, the median age is 56, significantly older than New South Wales' median age of 39. More than 50% of the population of Dangar are 55 years or older, so there is still a strong presence of retirees and people in their late careers on the island. Another thing you'll notice as you walk from the wharf is a collection of colourful wheelbarrows parked randomly at the side of the road. Residents use these to ferry their shopping and other small items between their residence and the wharf. Why? Well, no privately owned motorised vehicles are permitted on the island, with just 2 exceptions. The first is the community buggy. It's used by residents for shopping and mobility assistance. It's volunteer-driven and operates daily. The second is the community ute. It's used for heavy loads, furniture, rubbish and building supplies, and it's hireable by residents with a licence. Oh, there's one more exception, a mini fire truck run by the island's volunteer brigade.